But in terms of like trust, I mean, how do you acquire that?
So trust is, like you said, it's
In the sense of marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah. So one of the things we do is that when it comes to selling, because for me, like there's 3 areas that I'm really interested in. One is communication as a whole.
Yep.
One is selling, and one is influence.
Okay.
CSI guy, yeah.
Okay.
So for me, these are the big things. Now, like we were talking about earlier, sales is like a dirty word and stuff. But if I said communication, then maybe we'd see it very differently, right?
It's true.
So, for example, if I said to you, like, you have to get a job you got a job interview, you have to get that job, and you're not allowed to communicate in the interview. Right? Or if I said, look, you want to marry this sister, you got to go see her dad, you're not allowed to communicate.
Yeah, there would be no way of getting to the objective.
There's no way, right?
Yeah.
Communication is the key that facilitates it all, right? And this is why it's so amazing that if you look, when I was a kid, I used to look at the miracles of the prophets, and I'll be like, look at Musa alayhi salam, he's got the staff that becomes a snake. So cool. Yeah, Isa alayhi salam, he breathes into this clay bird, it becomes a real bird. And I'm like, all these miracles are so cool. The Prophet, what do you get? He got a book. What's that about, right? Like, they got all these cool ones, and he got a book. But that's because the most important and powerful thing in this world is communication. Communication is the most powerful thing.
And it's pure.
And it's pure. It's the words of Allah. So if you think about that communication is that big. Like the power of language is so huge.
SubhanAllah.
That even Allah chose that
as the ever. That's forever. It's the miracle that basically lasts throughout time. Right, and so communication is so important, and it's a foundation for when you're doing.
It's the foundations for guidance, huda.
Foundation for guidance is the foundation for, like, let's imagine, like we said, trust building is for that. What about motivating your people? What about leadership? All these kind of other skills that you need.
They're all
foundation of communication.
I mean, if you look at the Prophet's life, the way he communicated to different people to get them to to get them to be part of Islam.
Yes.
Like, for example, there was one enemy of Islam who wanted to kill the Prophet. And he just put his hand on his chest, you know, and that was enough to change the heart of this person. But that sort of is communication, isn't it? Because you have a goal and objective, which is to get people to come to Islam. And then you've changed your communication tactics to get them to appreciate the love of Islam. Once they're in it, they will appreciate the true beauty and the truth that is in it. So, like, I can see that this has this divine principle. Isn't it?
And that's why I believe that as Muslims, communication should be something we look deeply into.
And when you say it like communication, I'm much more comfortable with that.
Yeah, you are. You don't like that word sales, right?
But I think it was going to take time for it to become a bit more natural. I think. But in terms of like communication, like what kinds of, what kind of advice would you give to be a good communicator? Are you good at sales?
I think. By the way, like, if you got any guys who are watching and they're interested in like entrepreneurship and business and this kind of stuff, like, you have to master sales. You have to master sales, because at the end of the day, you're consistently selling yourself. Like right now, you know, you're sitting here, you have a message that you're pushing out. Right? You have something that you want to give, and the better your communication, the more value you're going to be able to add. The weaker your communication, the weaker your value will be, right? So sales, communication, influence, this is stuff that we as Muslims must master.
You know, a really good point as well to add to that. I mean, like, sometimes you meet people who are really knowledgeable people. They can't communicate their ideas effectively. So they can't pass down that knowledge. But you meet people who have some knowledge, but they're very, very grounded in it. They can teach it and they can communicate it really effectively. And they get the outreach based on that. So you could look at it from that angle as well, that it will also enhance your ability to help others. Even in this podcast, for me and Shu'aib, we should have more training and understanding of how to be radio hosts. And it's a slow process, inshallah. But in that way, in return, we will be helping steer the discussions and getting benefit out of this for our listeners, which is at the end of the day to help them become better people. So, like, the communication is so important, it's so intertwined with everything that you can't miss it even in business.
Every single part of your life, communication is basically the key to it. And one of the great things you're doing is actually doing it. So the more you communicate, the better, right? One of the reasons why I'm very fortunate is because I used to do counselling at a organisation, Muslim Youth Helpline, and you know, I was on the phone there for 5 years. Right. So me speaking on the phone there for 5 years helped me in my communication. Before that, I was working at like a minicab office and I was answering phones. So from the age of 17, I was working. I did that for a couple of years, and then even when I got to my sales job, I was constantly communicating. Even when I got into the other roles that I've been in, IERA and all these kind of things, it was constant communication.
And so all of this led up to your career path that you paved out, your entrepreneurial endeavors, your helping the community, all came from communication.
Yeah.
Because it's 15 years of just pure communication in different formats to help others. So I can see that I can trust you now. I can trust you because you're giving experience and you're putting your where your money where your mouth is, and showing that communication does get you places. And especially important for as a Muslim, because if you want to make an impact in this ummah, you need to be good at communicating properly. I mean, like for example, let's just look at scholars are first to go to for examples, but the scholars are incredibly good at the Arabic language. You know, like Imam Shafi'i was a poet. You know, all of these scholars they mastered the Arabic language, they mastered the Quran, they mastered the pure basics to a very high level. And that's what made them good at communication. That's what made them pass on the message really effectively. You know, so I can, not just in business, but in every realm, you can be good at communicating sincerely. And
it's the same thing when you come back to when you said when you came to ISOC, this is the first time that you were able to enjoy khutbah. It's because of the communication channel there. And that obviously sparked something within you to then start a practicing journey and etc. So that point of communication was key in that factor.